Welcome to Acorn study page of studying watercolor mixes and painting loosely Acorn. First, in the study page, I will paint out watercolor pigments that I will be using, and I want to use only 3 pigments for this study: lemon yellow, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. You can use any yellow, any red, and any blue which you have already in your watercolor paint box. Starting with lemon yellow, equally adding alizarin crimson and equally ultramarine blue. Adjusting, adding more to have more saturated watercolor mix, and mixing all these 3 together, I get brown watercolor mix. Painting out on my color study page, you can do in any sketchbook. At least it should have 200 GSM watercolor paper, or you can do on a separate piece of paper. These color study pages, color study notes are super important for your watercolor painting journey. Second mix is more of lemon yellow, adding alizarin crimson and little touch of ultramarine blue. Adding a little bit more of alizarin crimson. And in this mix, I have more yellow pigment and I get a really golden brown watercolor mix. Super warm, very vibrant brown. For the third mix, I'm taking lemon yellow, ultramarine blue, this will be for leaf part, and little touch of alizarin crimson. To make any green watercolor mix more earthy green, adding teeny tiny amount of red will do the thing, but don't put it too much, then we will get again brown watercolor mix. And I want to now paint loosely leaf just to add watercolors and make this composition colored, but I will not be painting realistically this leaf. It can take quite a lot of time, but I just want to paint in watercolors to have notes, to see color, and for the overall composition look. Using round synthetic brush, I applied water just enough for watercolors to be moved. I don't have a lot of water on paper, so there are no watery puddles. And carefully starting from the shadow area, applying green watercolor mix that we got by mixing 3 main primary pigments: yellow, red, and blue. Adding clean lemon yellow because upper part of leaf from reference photo I see it's more yellowish. Smoothing. Painting quite quickly because this is really a sketch. This is a study page. I'm not aiming for perfect results and I'm not too worried about how it will all look. Main thing about study pages is to get information, to write down that information, that later on you open that page and you see your notes and you understand what is required to paint a bigger piece, more accurate painting. And I'm taking a little bit of brown watercolor mix and adding at the bottom part of the sleeve. If I would be painting a bigger piece, I think I would be mixing another green watercolor mix using perlin green to get more darker. But now I'm not concentrating on leaf. My main study here is acorn. And now with finer to brush, while the surface is still moist, I'm wiping out main vein. You can do it, you can leave it out, you can even not paint this sleeve at all. This is up to you. This will be your study page. If you want to do it completely realistic, do it. If you want to paint it loosely, also great. You can also make it with graphites. While leaf is drying, write down notes that you have explored during this process of mixing, which pigments were used. And later on, no matter how long time has passed, you will know what to mix and what to do. Now for the acorn body part, I'm applying water, very small amount. Water is not dripping anywhere. Taking a mix and starting from shadow area. And also a little bit of where is more yellow in it. Washing my brush, cleaning in paper towel and smoothing to the lighter part. With round and synthetic brush it is easily done, and especially if you don't have too much water on paper surface. And important to leave lighter area wider than it appears in the reference photo, because with many layers this area will become smaller, but in the beginning it's always better to leave it wider. Adding a little bit more, especially in the shadow area, and again washing my brush, cleaning a paper towel and smoothing applied watercolors. And remember that this is just a study page. You don't need to be perfect here. You are not aiming for perfect result. It's a place where you are testing, when you are experimenting and learning. A little bit more here and there. Acorn consists also of lines. That's what I'm adding, but everything is very lightly and transparently. Now I will leave it to dry. I will add another line here. I see it in a reference photo. And smooth this left edge. At the end there's a little tip. We will add it. Oh, it went too big. But no worry, this is just a study page. Adding a little bit of water and dumping with paper towel. And I will wait for it to dry. Then I will go over and add a little sharp tip. Now for the upper part, I'm applying water. A little bit of brown that we have. Very transparently. It's important to paint super transparently. A little bit of green. I see in some areas a little bit of green. And now cleaning brush and smoothing applied watercolors, because when I look at the reference photo, the lightest part in all this composition is this cap for Acorn. And while it's still moist, let's add a little bit of darkness on top, just with a little stippling. With a little stippling, adding here and there. Not everywhere, because there's also a lighter parts. Here and there with a stippling. We are recreating the texture we see. We don't even need to paint it exactly as it is, but recreating a texture. Now the greener part of the leaf is completely dry at this moment, so I'm taking round synthetic brush, watercolor mix, and I will go over again the shadow part. Clean my brush and smooth, leaving this upper part lighter. And now stem area. I want to add to my main brown mix a little bit more of ultramarine blue. This will create more grayer watercolor mix. Now applying water. Not too much. and from the right side, like with the thin lines. I'm not applying water to this very thin stem because it's so thin and it's crispy, so we need more crisp. And be careful to make it super thin. And taking more watercolors, adding very fine lines. Going lower, I see lemon yellow on the stem area, especially on the lighter part on the left. These study pages shouldn't be too complex, shouldn't be taking too much of your time. It's a wonderful way to study subject, to see what is working in your mixes and what is not. I removed this little mistake and taking again with the finer tip brush and more careful and accurate this time, like this. So this little tip is really should be sharp and precise. Then the surface is completely dry and I will add a little bit more of darker brown watercolor mix on the acorn body. I'm not touching upper part now. I just want to add a few fine lines to make this shadow part slightly dark. And these lines, if you zoom in closer reference photo, you will notice that they go from up till very down, very lower part of acorn, and they are curving. To really understand realistic watercolor painting, there are no magic tricks or some kind of, I don't know, special techniques. It's more about observation of reference you have. Is it real subject or is it a reference photo? It doesn't matter unless you have your own preferences. Then you need to really carefully study reference photo because everything is there. You don't need to figure out anything. All information for realistic painting is in the reference itself. My preferences are reference photos which I take by myself because I don't have the luxury amount of time to paint real subjects from life, and especially I'm painting live, like flowers, leaves, and they tend to fade away pretty quickly and I can't sit and paint in one sitting. So for me the best solution is to have reference photo, and then I have painting sessions when I have time. And still, even when I have time, I get interrupted by family members or other important. So right now I'm building more layers on the darker side. I will take now this brown, which is more golden brown, and we'll add more contrast to the shadow here and there, leaving this part shiny. We see in reference photo that is shiny, and acorns have very smooth and glance surface. This creates the shine. The bigger the contrast, the more shinier it will look. More, and now it's more like a dry brush technique. Amount of water you see is very small. I can lift my mixing palette and there are no water puddles, and my brush is slightly moist, and that's how I add more layers to this acorn. And now it's becoming golden brown, beautifully golden brown. A little bit more here on top, just underneath the cap. I see from reference photo that there's more color. and this golden as well. Like this little cap is casting shadow on the acorn body. And that's it. In this study page, I want to pay more attention to acorn body, how to make it shiny, how are my colors correct, and that's it. You don't need to aim for some perfect result, for some completely, it's just a matter of your studies, the area that you are more maybe struggling or you quite don't know, because in the study page you really can get your subject closer, more accurate, and when you will be painting it on a bigger piece, maybe bigger composition, more serious composition, then you will already know what to do, which colors to take, which techniques to use. Is it more dry brush? Is it more stippling? Is it more smooth layers? So it's really now up to you. But these study pages, I find them so helpful. It shouldn't take a lot of time. It shouldn't take a lot of your effort. 10, 20, 30 minutes, and it will save you time in long run. Here I'm adding a little bit more to the cap, a little bit more to stem, and it can stay unfinished. That's completely okay if your study page stays unfinished. It's up to you how much you need, how much you want to do. This is darker, just adding a little bit, and lighter here, using watercolors that I have in my palette. You can write everything you need, like for example I will write here that first I used watercolor mix that was this one, and then on top I added this one. I can write it all here, and later on when I will open, I will know. I will have all information that will help me to paint more bigger composition. Well, this is how my finished study page. Watercolor mixes, pigments that I used, very loose painting, more detailed acorn body, notes about watercolors, paintings, name of the plant. And here I would like to add watercolor mix. Here I have mixing browns, and I would like to add that color here. I really like this golden. It really looks like golden brown color, and I will write that is lemon yellow, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. But I, for myself, will circle lemon yellow. Now I would like to also make gradual more transition here, that it's more concentrated on top and lighter as the water dilutes. So I see how it looks transparent. And then also you can make your own notes, how you want to write them down. I will also separately paint out pigments. Like this is my mixing notebook for watercolor studies.